I call Porter Williams.
Thank you, Mr.
5
Speaker.
minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I want to confine my contribution at this time on the impacts of this piece of legislation on family, or the role that family would actually like to play with regards to coronial inquests and inquiries into death of loved ones. And why I put family at the centre of my contribution, Mr. Speaker, is because I believe that the coroner's role has three prime responsibilities. I guess one of the prime reasons that we would want the coroner's work to continue is in order to find cause of death so that we may put in place measures that could prevent future deaths of that nature. I guess the second reason would be if the death is as a result of a crime, that adequate information and evidence is produced in order for that crime to be prosecuted appropriately and accordingly. And I guess the third reason, and for me one of the prime reasons, is that the families of the deceased person actually feel that the manner with which that person lost their lives has been adequately investigated and due measures are put in place to prevent it happening to any other family. And there are parts of this piece of legislation which speak specifically to the role of families in the process. And I speak specifically, as I did during the committee stages, on the handling of deceased bodies and what may happen when investigation happens to that body and some of the parts, particularly tissue, are not returned to family. There are huge cultural implications around the treatment of deceased persons. In my own culture, it would be unusual for a dead body to be, for our loved one, when they are deceased, to be on their own at any point in time. We go to great pains to ensure that a family member is with that body at all times until they are interred. So for families who submitted, like the Stills family, whose daughter was killed as a result of the Wairarapa balloon crash, to anguish over not being able to see their daughter's body and not to be able to be in touch with her tūpapaku is, in our culture, hugely distressing, and their distress came through on their submission. And it would be one thing that we would really encourage future examinations of the coroner's process to really hold in high regard that families at this time are in distress. There's no doubt that the process has improved over time, but there is also no doubt that there are improvements still to be made. And the examination of this piece of legislation has led to the Māori Select Committee launching an inquiry into the handling of tūpapaku, because it is an important cultural aspect. It is an important cultural part to our lives, the rituals and the rites that must occur when someone has deceased. So in that regard, I want to encourage that the coroner's process does take family wishes into full regard. Also, when the body is not returned to the family completely whole, Mr. Speaker, there is also an implication for that. The family should be notified when and if that process can occur to ensure that the body can be interred in completely. Sometimes that can't occur, so the family must be consulted fully as to how they would like the treatment of the body to occur. Mr. Speaker, and just in conclusion, I do want to touch on the SOP in the name of Phil Goff, because again, I feel it is really important that the role of families of the Defence Force when their loved ones are killed overseas should be considered in the process. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I call